Hello, rodeo fans. Welcome to episode 14 of the Short Round, the official podcast of the Canadian Professional Rodeo Association. I'm your host, Wacey Anderson, and once again joined by the one and only Clay Creasy. Clay, I think I think we can finally say that rodeo season has arrived. We got a full slate of rodeos happening this weekend, kind of the first three banger of 2024. We just had our first SMS Pro Tour rodeo wrap up on Buffalo Lake, and yeah, things are happening. It's a bit rainy in Western Canada these days, but we'll take rain at any time of year. But when it comes to trying to keep the fires away and helping out the farmers. So, anyways, yeah, we're rolling. It's rodeo time, and yeah, how's things been with you, man?
Oh, it's been good. Been busy, been getting stuff ready for our local rodeo here in Cadogan and stuff, and only broke a fingertip, so we're good so far.
So far, so
But
good. That's the
but
most dangerous part is getting
yeah,
ready most of the time.
yeah. You're thinking, is it gonna rain? Is it? I mean, there's
Yeah.
certain weekends that you always think it's like, oh yeah, Grand Prairie's always sloppy,
Oh, I know.
or Hand Hills always gets soaked
I
and stuff,
know.
and yeah, so it's.
There's
I
some
mean,
years, man. There's been years I've been in Grand Prairie and it's been beautiful. It's one of those it's just that springtime in Alberta, just one of those things you
yeah.
can never. When I was down in Texas a couple weeks ago, people would ask where we're from, and we tell them, and they would ask like, what the weather's like. We're at home. And I'm like, it's kind of nice, but you can never really like rule out snow until like the end of June, middle of July. So you never know what can happen. But it's good to have
Yeah.
moisture this time of year, I guess. But anyways, exciting
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. We've definitely had some sun here the last little bit. I know I don't always remember to put on the sunscreen, and then we had a little gymkhana on the weekend, and yeah,
Oh,
I
dang.
get my bronze on a bit after that.
Attaboy, getting a head start on the
Yeah.
midsummer tan. Nice. Well,
Yeah.
like I said, Clay, we wrapped up the Buffalo Lake Métis settlement SMS Pro Tour Rodeo last weekend. There were some big moments that happened, and why don't you run us through some of the highlights and results that you were able to pluck out for us?
Yeah, I think generally your bareback riding is your first event of the rodeo, and obviously the big win there for Brett Williams. He's been around road bareback horses for quite a few years, but hasn't
Mhm.
always had those big wins. So, like a big moment like this for him, you can only see and hope that it leads to much bigger things for him. I mean, it pretty much winning a tour rodeo puts you well on your way to a
Mhm.
CFR berth on its own.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
definitely gets the summer rolling. So it was good to see him finish there, almost crack a 90 with an 89 and a half,
yeah.
and big moment for a guy that I'm sure there's a lot of people are proud to see have happen for him.
And to get it done on a horse like of Virgil's stature. I know a lot of guys getting your name put beside Virgil on a draw could be quite intimidating, and it obviously didn't really intimidate Brett or seem like it intimidated him that much. He got the job done and made a big ride in a tough pen of bareback riding with 83 points, kind of being the bottom hole. Like he had to be above 85 to kind of really get a solid check. So I mean, kudos to Brett for making that happen.
Yeah, for sure. Oren Larson really cracked out that first night with an 86.
Yeah.
He set the bar right, so then you knew Brett would have known he had the horsepower, but it
Yeah,
it's one thing to know it going into it. It's another to finish the deal. So it was good for him.
100%. Well, and then speaking of big wins, Kyle Wanchuk, another one, kind of uh the other half of the Wanchuk brother saddlemark riding duo, but he cracked out with a big ride on Lacey May of C5s to get his first pro tour win on the trail this year. Talk a bit about that ride.
Yeah, I mean it was a great ride. The horse really stacked up right there, and
Yeah.
you could kind of see from the video, like it had him. It was one of those. All right, we're here to party moves, and then he really got sat down. I mean, he's got those fast feet just like Kobe does, and just really finished a great ride on that horse. And it's a good young horse, C5s that I know
Mhm.
that all the guys have got to be licking their chops, hoping they get a piece of that horse.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but I mean, again, Kyle's story, and again, I'm putting a little plug on the fact that
Plug it.
I
Yeah, plug the CRN. Also,
I
sorry for these
mentioned
lights flickering.
my
It's
last article for the Pro Rodeo News there, but I mean, Kyle didn't start riding broncs until the fall of 2021 in college rodeo.
mhm, mhm.
primarily had been a roper and a really, really good team roper and everything like that. And it just kind of seemed like that was going to be his path, but got college rodeo and started wanting to ride broncs, but kind of stumbled into and just started off with a lightning hot spring at 2022 in the team rope and got his card filled in the team roping and suddenly was stuck in a really tough spot for the
Hmm.
bronc riding into things because he really wasn't in a position at that moment to decide to enter the open, but he
Right.
had, and so
Yeah.
he like bought his card and then wasn't able to or compete on his first novice horse that he was entered in. So I mean, just the leaps and bounds he's come from there. I mean, last year was about even on both events, and now is kind of pulling away in the bronc riding is it's pretty incredible to see, and just yeah, again, big things coming for him.
Yeah.
In both events. So
The talent runs deep in the Wanchuk family. Uh, Another person, another like kind of a new face in the winner's circle was is Chase to Catch, big win. I think it was 3-3
yeah,
to win the rodeo, and that's gonna set him up for an awesome summer.
yeah, for sure. Chase is a young guy from my neck of the woods out there in Coronation. I mean, his grandpa Marvin and grandma Carol, they've had a huge part in the Coronation Pro Rodeo there over the years. And his dad Doug was a CFR competitor in the bareback riding, and Chase rode steers growing up, but moved towards the steer wrestling. And obviously, this is yeah, again a real big break for him. So it's can't happen at a better one this early in the
Yeah,
season
yeah,
in the first tour rodeo. So
yeah. There's something to be said for getting a win at a tour rodeo like this, kind of kick off that big summer run. Like you roll in, like we said, top of the show, you roll into Grand Prairie, Leduc, Hand Hills. You really like build some momentum heading into what's going to be a busy end of May, early June, and just having that like confidence going that you knowing that you can compete, especially because all the big dogs come out for the tour rodeo. So good on Chase for getting the win there. Another one you had noted down, Chelsea Moore, double dipping. Uh, she's a barrel racer and she won the breakaway roping. Which it's funny because she seems like the first person, like one of the only people so far this year to be the only person to win for like not split first. Like, it seems like so many rodeos in the breakaway roping this spring have been split with like a 2-4, like three ways or a 2-2. It's been pretty competitive. So it's good to see Chelsea get the win up in Buffalo Lake.
yeah, for sure. And I was looking at the results. She was a tenth ahead of second place, which there was five of them
Right?
that
Yeah,
were.
exactly. Yeah, that's
And so
crazy.
yeah, that tenth of a second made her an extra $1,000.
That's nuts, man. That's
So
so
yeah,
crazy.
like again, they're just those breakaway ropers are just so tough. And Chelsea, I mean, she is an all around hand.
Hmm.
She is
Hmm.
always has been. She was always a phenomenal goat tire. Just again, come up through the high school rodeo ranks, college rodeo down in the States, and just always super handy. But again, it's just goes to show that for a person like her to have that outlet of now being able to breakaway rope and barrel race and
Hmm.
I think I saw earlier, like her barrel horse is one that had been hurt for a while. Not sure if they were ever going to get him back. And
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's another story
so,
in the rodeo news about that.
yeah,
Check out the
yeah.
Canadian Rodeo
So
News. Don't forget.
for sure. So yeah, no, it's just great to see things clicking for her
Yeah.
and working on both ends. So
Yeah.
really
Well,
always cool to see that.
yeah, that's awesome, man. It's just cool. This cool that there's like two events for women to kind of be competitive at and make some money. And you look at like the White Side girls are a good case for that. They seem to be if they're not winning the barrel racing, they're winning the breakaway roping or they're winning both. It's pretty awesome to see. Some other big shooters we want to talk about from Buffalo Lake, Calgary Smith and Brady Tryon. Them boys, they can't be beat. It's crazy. You pretty much can put them in as a lock for to win pretty much anywhere they go these days, and it seems like they're not slowing down. They're going to be tough to beat all summer up here.
Yeah, it almost feels like we're going to be able to just copy and paste them
Yeah.
every show here because there's
Makes
just
Barb's job easy putting results up on the website when those boys show
yeah,
up to the
for
rodeo.
sure. Somebody's like, hey, the rest of the guys didn't actually place at this rodeo.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're just such a good pair. They just work so well together.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch and looking back at some of the clips from the rodeo, like they just have that confidence, that swagger that you know they're gonna come up and make a good run. It's fun to watch. So also kind of wrapping up the Buffalo Lake results and points we really want to talk about is Kyle Brown. He's the only bull rider to stand a bull for the 3 days, pocketing nearly $10,000. And that's the second time this year where one cowboy has walked away with the whole pot. Tyler Craig doing that in Dawson Creek earlier this year. But man, that was with ground money counting towards the standings. That 83-point ride or 82-point ride you make is going to become a big factor when it comes to who's going to be in those top 12 spots for the CFR this fall.
Yeah, it looked like a little sweetheart bull. He made a good ride on him, and it's one of those ones that you can't overthink it. You just got to get it done. And I mean, it's just, yeah, that ground money counting is just such a game
I
changer.
know, I know. Well, and being up the last day, like he coming in, no, like nobody has ridden yet. You're like, oh man, if I stay on, big payday coming my way. So that's gonna add another layer of pressure for anybody who knows like what it's like. Like it just there's so many other variables. But yeah, it's like you say, you can't overthink it. You just got to go there and get the job done, and it's gonna go a long way for Kyle later in the season. So that's a big old win for that guy.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good job. Again, like that's you can get pretty lean in the rodeo game sometimes, so that'll go a long way to keeping things moving for the month of June and July when things get expensive.
100%. Well, one last thing you wanted to plug, Clay, before we move on is novice bareback rider Jace Lomheim. He seems to be popping up in the results everywhere that he goes and just picking away, winning some checks and pursuing his first Canadian novice bareback riding title.
Yeah, so again, Jace is just up the road here, goes to school in Huendon. I got to meet him last year, and actually he won the novice bareback riding at our rodeo here in Cadogan last year, and maybe hopefully I'll be able to get him a buckle or two this week coming up. But there's not a lot of novice bareback riding kids, but definitely I've been watching the rides he's been making, whether they're at pro rodeos or amateur rodeos, and he's just really come a long ways. I
Mhm.
mean, from even where he was when I saw him at Cadogan to now, I mean, he's going to be a one to watch here. His dad and his uncle were bareback riding guys, Wade and Clint there.
Mhm.
I rodeoed with Clint back in the day, and just a super nice kid, like just really, really taking care of business. And yeah, we're going to see some good things out of him.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty solid crop of novice and steer wrestler kids going down the road. Every rodeo seems to be a mid to high 70s ride, and that's going to go a long way having that strong field of competitors in those events this year. But anyways, Clay, I think it's going to wrap it up for the top half of the show here. I'm going to throw it to our interview this week. We got the one and only Brett Gardiner joining us, 12-time CPRA Announcer of the Year. That guy's, you name it, you name it, he's done it in the rodeo world. So I'm really stoked for you guys to listen to hear my chat with Brett. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.
Sound a little empty or no?
It's I get a bit of an echo, but I think it's just I'll edit the audio afterwards, so like don't worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can edit on my end.
I didn't know you could do that.
Just yeah, I have like the platform that I use. I can do like audio and edit video. All the nice.
Okay.
It has like they just brought in like an AI thing where they can enhance audio and remove all the noise and get the levels like where you want them. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it works well.
What's that called?
I use CapCut on the desktops. Like people use it lots on their phone, but there's a desktop version of it, which I like really. I use all the video editing that I do in podcast editing is like done right in that. And like the pro version, you can do like the audio enhancer and like the AI enhancer stuff too. It's pretty handy.
Yeah, I love it.
It works good. Okay, let's do it. Alrighty.
Buckle up.
Welcome back to episode 14 of the short round. I am super pleased to be joined by this week's guest. We had him on earlier this year, but welcome back, the 12-time Pro Rodeo Canada Announcer of the Year, Brett Gardiner. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, man, just happy to be here. Happy to see you, Wacey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good, man. We're kind of getting into I've been saying this for like the last, I think, 5 or 6 episodes, but we're finally getting into the full swing of the Canadian rodeo season. We got the Grand Prix Stampede firing up this weekend. We just wrapped up the Buffalo Lake Métis Settlement Rodeo, kind of kicking off the SMS Pro Tour, and then obviously Leduc and Hand Hills going on over these next little while. It's going to be a crazy start, or crazy next few months when Cowboy Christmas fires up. But I kind of want to check in with you, see how things are going, get kind of a early season kind of update from the world of Brett Gardiner.
No, I appreciate it. It's I guess, first of all, I agree with you. It feels kind of like that June 1st is kind of like when things cut loose. There's been, one a weekend for a while, and now
Mhm.
it's starting to double and triple and quadruple up when it comes to rodeo from a scheduling standpoint. So, yeah, it feels like now it's kind of hair back. And I think it's even felt that way, even in my world, kind of career wise. We just kind of leak our way into June.
Yeah.
And once June hits, we're going to come up for air the middle of October, and hopefully everybody, is still standing and ended the season the way that they want to and need to. So I certainly agree, but it's really exciting. It's kind of like that anticipatory anxiety.
Mhm.
Everybody's just geared up and full of excitement and ready to go. So certainly I'm with you there, Ways. It just feels like we're just now
Yeah.
on the edge, and now everybody's going to dive in and really go to work.
It's been one of those things too where there's been like some great action between like Kananaskis Pro Rodeo, Drayton Valley. Like there's been some good rides, good runs, and it's kind of just like you said that like it feels like it's building and building, and then like you say, next thing you know, it's going to be the CFR come October. But yeah, I kind of want to ask like what some of the early season highlights for you. I know you spent some time in the U.S. earlier this year. You were down in Coleman for the pro rodeo there, and obviously you'll be up in Grand Prairie and all over the place in the next few weeks. But yeah, what are some of the early season highlights for you, Brett?
I think, yeah, you mentioned going south. That was pretty cool. I got to go down and just do a couple different events, and it was
Yeah.
really more of maybe a personal passion project than anything, just to kind of go down and see some different things and see how people do
Mhm.
things, in the United States or different associations and things like that. And really, I feel that I've been so fortunate in this career, and it's afforded me so many incredible things and wonderful opportunities, but I firmly believe that we can all get better, and that's really what my
Mhm.
mindset is. And it was something that it was just kind of a change of scenery and a change of pace for me, and to work with some other people just to kind of challenge me to push me out of my box a little bit. And I think I really accomplished that. I always said, as fortunate I've been with the awards and the events that I got to go to, I say what's most exciting for me personally is I know that my best work's still ahead of me. So that's kind of cool. And I just wanted to go get kind of a different look at some things. And they encouraged me to, yeah, to see things a different way and to challenge myself a little bit, but to really go down and learn. And was able to do that kind of the first few months of the season. So I'm excited to turn it loose here on Canadian soil. But yeah, from the States then came up, and my first CPRA rodeo of the year was Coleman, and has been for the past 9 or 10 years at the Kananaskis Pro Rodeo. And that's really one of my favorites. And I
Yeah.
always say it's like how often you get to announce a pro rodeo or be a part of a pro rodeo and then jump outside and you're just amongst the mountains, and it's
Oh.
snowing and it's just beautiful. There's something maybe therapeutic about it, or just puts a
Mhm.
smile on your face. And I really appreciate the work they do there. I'm so fortunate to work with so many great communities and committees. But man, it's like they're small, but they're mighty. There's that
Oh,
handful of
man.
people that have been a part of that rodeo, and lots of them since day one. And of course, Joe Trotz comes to mind, who was last year's CPRA Committee Person of the Year. He sat with the Kessler family around a table 40 some years ago, and a rodeo that's sort of the handshake deal. And that's how it continues over 4 decades later. And it's sold out every performance.
Oh,
Saturday night
man.
is sold out weeks in advance. And it's not a huge venue, but it is so incredible, the energy in there. And those are some of the things I've really come to appreciate in my career. It's just there's a small committee. They're so dedicated. They work so hard for their community. It's hundreds of hours that they put in,
Oh my gosh.
probably thousands,
Yeah, yeah.
and to make it a reality. And we get to go, and I get to, make a living from it, but
Mhm.
they get to present the product that we love so much, and the sport of rodeo that we both love so much, to their friends, family, and communities. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I love that one. It's got
Oh,
a
man.
special place in my heart. I mean, they all do, but that one's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
It's like that's one you could like classify that like under one of the hidden gems of like the rodeo schedule, I would say. You got like there's rodeos like Kananaskis, Jasper is one of those rodeos. I would
Sure.
even put like the Moose Mountain Pro Rodeo in Kennedy is like
Yeah.
maybe the ones that aren't at the top of everybody's list to go check out. But if you go down there, you're gonna have like a world-class experience on the rodeo side of things. Like you say, it's thanks to the great committees that you were able to be around and have within Pro Rodeo Canada. So it's pretty cool to hear it, even for you how rewarding it is to go to those types of rodeos, like talking about everywhere a guy like you has been in your career. So it's neat to
Yeah. No.
kind of hear it through your lens. But one thing I wanted to ask, kind of on that committee train of thought,
Hmm.
I had a good conversation with Keenan Vine last weekend, and we kind of really got into the production side of it. But how how has the committee involvement and even the way committees have thinking about rodeo changed in year through year lens over the last few years. I know it's kind of been we're starting to see it, like even with Coleman, like getting their rodeo onto the Cowboy channel. It's such a big
Sure.
thing, but there's been so many advancements or kind of just the way committees are approaching rodeo in the last few years.
What a great question, and what a big idea. And I think it's first of all, it's really cool that you asked that. And I think secondly, staying with the same theme of cool, it's been cool to see how committees have changed and
Hmm.
evolved. And I think let me say, I think the context really matters in all
Hmm.
walks of my life. And it's funny because I'm thinking of Coleman and how they spend more time on their openings now, and we kind of entertain differently than we used to. You know, the idea of entertainment has changed over the past few years with everything in the world. But then I also think of places like Lee Park, who,
Hmm.
you know, it seems to not necessarily change a whole bunch, but I say that with tremendous respect because that is really special about Lee Park. I mean, it is just great world class rodeo, and they have a great fan base. And it's one of those things I don't want to say, hey, it's not, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, those guys spend a million hours on their ground. I
Yeah,
mean, they spend so much time and
it's
energy
crazy.
and so much pride in that place. But again, it's that history that they sell again for decades long, and it's just so good. I don't think they maybe again need to change or have been forced to change like some. I think some have been forced to maybe kind of change because they need to draw a bigger fan base or they need to attract a different type of maybe corporate sponsor because we know those communities, again, if I'm to lean on Coleman, because we talked about it and it
Mhm.
wasn't that long ago that it happened, they're not a huge community. And we
No.
know that professional rodeos, it's not cheap. It takes a lot to bring everybody in to really put a good show together. That's the way of the
Mhm.
world. So they have to lean on their communities. They have to lean on volunteerism. And I think, again, it kind of speaks to making sure that they can get the dollars that they need to make it a
Mhm.
reality. And what do they have to sell at the end of the day, too, to the consumer? So is the person coming through the door buying the ticket? And is it attracting sponsorship? Keeping them or attracting new ones. So I think there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And some have really responded with some really neat ideas and other concepts and evolved over time. So it has been really, really cool to see it through that kind of production lens. And I really appreciate it being a part of some neat stuff and
Yeah.
spend a lot of time in the PBR as well. That's a different show traditionally than pro rodeo.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I mean, they're just different. And that's also what's great about them. They are different because we're attracted to different things and different types of entertainment. So it is certainly really cool to see everybody's
Mhm.
evolution and committee's willingness to do that, to maybe
Yeah.
keep up with the times, for lack of a better expression.
Well, and I think that willingness to learn and grow has been so cool. Even just from my like limited experience in the past 5 or 6 years working with a lot of these committees, it just like they'll go to the convention in Vegas, they'll come to the
Sure,
CFR, and they'll go to the PBR World Finals in Fort Worth, or they'll go to the Cowboy Channel convention in what they had the stockyards there. It's just they're wanting to make their show better, which in turn makes it better for us. And it's been so cool to see that evolution. And even from my, through my lens, like just being able to go like I was able to catch a performance at the PBR World Finals in
hmm,
Arlington and just seeing what bull riding and rodeo can do. Like they sold out over half of AT&T Stadium, which is to some people probably a crazy concept. It's like almost like 35,000 people just watching bull riding.
sure,
So I think it's cool to see that, or cool to know that these committees are willing to kind of step up the game and kind of deliver a better
sure,
experience. And I think there's part of it too, Brett, with like with sponsorship. I think the sponsors are expecting more out of these events and kind of what their investment is, right? They want to make sure that they're kind of being able to showcase their business and not just kind of having their logo in the program. And I think that kind of is also kind of helping move along production, experience, and kind of the whole thing of rodeo as we know it, I think.
yeah, I think that's well said, and I completely agree with you because
Mhm.
yeah, the evolution of what people expect and the ways that we can provide it, the mediums that are provided. I remember when if you had a replay screen in a rodeo 10 years ago, I was like, oh my goodness sakes. Now there's not many that don't have them. It's an
Mhm.
extremely small percentage. It's just become something that's almost an expectation. And I think that
Mhm.
sponsors like, hey, they want to see that stuff,
Mhm.
but it certainly comes at a cost. But yeah, I think expectations have certainly changed. So yeah, some rodeos have really embraced that and been able to kind of run with it. And I think even to that point, it made me think of when I went south to January, got to be part of that event in San Diego.
Mhm.
I mean, they had 20,000 people at Petco Park in San Diego on a major league ball team's field. It was like,
Yeah.
what? Something that people really wouldn't have fathomed maybe years ago. Now, mind you, there's been some really, really cool events through the years. And I know that somebody's going to be listening and say, hey, well, 30 years ago, we went,
Yeah,
in Montreal. There was some
for
phenomenal
sure, for sure.
stuff for sure, but it is so cool just to see, Petco parks and like you said, AT&T stadiums and all of these kind of iconic sports venues that now host and with the CFR headed to Edmonton. I mean,
Oh man.
Rogers Place, yeah, absolute. I mean,
Mm.
world class venue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. Hey, it's one of the best in Western Canada. No, that venue is one of the best in the world. Having
100%.
been to lots of big stadiums and fortunate enough to be so, that place it's like I always say, and I have had the opportunity to work events there. So I always say it's like you're plugging into a Lamborghini. That place just feels different,
Yeah.
man.
Oh yeah.
Like it just feels different. So I think it's really, really cool.
Well, and I guess like talking about the evolution of committees and how they're stepping up their game and kind of applying it to what you do. How are you able to continue to evolve and bring your A game everywhere you go? And
Mm.
obviously, you're doing something right, winning 12 in a row Canadian Announcer of the Year. But I want to know, and I'm sure people out there want to know, is like how do you evolve your game and kind of keep up with the times, but also keep the drive to do so. It's not easy to kind of keep that motor running for that extended period of time.
Well,
I'm bringing the heat today, bro.
again,
I'm
I like
sorry,
the
man.
question. No, man, I think it's great. I think it's great because it's interesting. I think that the question comes at a really appropriate time. And I mean, you and I are friends outside of this world too in this format. So you and I have probably talked about it a little bit. But great question, because there was times in my career not that long ago that was really my big question. I'm like, okay, how do I keep changing and evolving and getting better? Is this as good as it's ever going to be, or my best days behind me? Because I always make this little joke, people say, "Oh, you're not that old," and I say, "Well, it ain't the years, it's the miles," and I've got to make some miles. I mean, I announced my first pro rodeo in 2006 in Medicine Hat. I was 21 years old, and it's kind
Mhm.
of been, full on ever since from an announcing standpoint of things. So, been lots of times on the road, and lots of cool events that I've got to be a part of. But there does come a time where, you do 100 performances a year. How do you change? How can you continue to grow? How can you kind of keep that fire burning? So, and there's been points in my career, Wacey, when it's been like, okay, maybe I had a good run, and it's time for me to step away. I've had that
Yeah.
conversation, and I've spoken publicly about that before, um, and that was one of the reasons, to be completely transparent. I didn't know we were gonna go here, buddy. I appreciate it. Even January when I went south, it's like, how much do I really love this game?
Mhm.
And it was so reaffirming for me because at the end of the day, I do love it and I love my
Mhm.
job within it. And I'm like I said, looking forward to doing my best work yet. But really, when it comes to motivation now, there was a point in my career when it was certainly motivated to kind of try and climb the ladder, and you're trying to acquire events, and there's almost that part where our ego gets wrapped around in it. And I would argue that most announcers, we have somewhat of an ego,
You
or we
gotta.
don't, kind of crave being there at
Mhm.
times, or being part of the show like we are. There's going to be exceptions to that rule, but for most people, I think there's that ego and kind of drives us, and that drove me for a long time, just wanting to be as good as I could be and climb the mountain and do the best job I could. And that is still the case, but I think now more than ever, I really say it, and I've said it. It's like I just really love the people, and I want to create as good of experience for them as I can, and that truly is what motivates me. I know that sounds okay, maybe a touch philosophical, but like I said, all my jobs that I have, they involve people, and
Mhm.
they hopefully involve helping people, and I want them to feel good about themselves, and I want them to enjoy the experience that they have, and I want to help them appreciate the sport and the people within it as much as I do. And so the
Mm,
better
mhm.
I do, the better story I can tell. Um, the more creative I can get, the bigger vocabulary I can deliver upon, the better educated I can become about the sport. I get to better convey that to the audience, the people that are buying the ticket, and it creates a better experience for them. And at the end of the day, I want them to leave there feeling good about themselves and enjoying their
Yeah.
couple of hours with us. And then same with the competitors. It's like I just love trying to make them feel so good about themselves so that they get to put their best foot forward. And if I've done that, I think I've accomplished my job. And I know as an announcer, it's an opinion-based job, and not everybody loves what we do. And there's people think, "Oh my goodness sakes, this Brett Gardner, he's announcing this thing. He needs to stay home." Yeah, that happens. That's out there
Hmm.
for sure.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I know that the best job that I can put forth, the people around us that have paid the ticket, and the people that are nodding their head and making those runs, hopefully we can make it the best experience for them. So we talk about motivation, Wacey. That's what motivates me. I just want to
Hmm.
see how good Brett Gardner can get in service of the people around him. And if we can accomplish that, I'm doing my job.
That's it's kind of a refreshing outlook. I know it's probably there's a part of that's probably having to set that ego aside a little bit and kind of
Sure.
go back to the roots of it of like of the love of the sport. And I think it goes to anybody who works in the sport. Like if you're in it and you're working it because you love it and you want to see it grow, like that's going to show in your work. And it obviously has been for you as you've been able to grow your career and do all these different things. But I, just to pump your tires for you for a second. You do a really
Yeah.
good job of that. I know a lot of people who I know outside of the rodeo world who go to events that we attend, they can really recognize you're like one of the most recognizable voices in rodeo. Like we were at I was at the Calgary Stampede with my girlfriend and her brother, and they live in Armstrong, which is a rodeo that you do for
Hmm.
a long time. And your voice came over the PA, and they're like, "Oh my god, is that Brett? Like the guy who does Armstrong?" Which I thought was a cool moment to hear. Like people
Sure.
who maybe aren't directly connected to rodeo can recognize good work when they hear it, right? So it speaks to what you're trying to accomplish with your work, is you're trying to give those people a good experience, and it's obviously a memorable one for a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that story. Thanks, Wade.
But yeah, for sure. So kind of moving into more of the rodeo action, has there been anybody who's kind of stuck out to you so far this season, kind of early on? I know we've seen the reigning Canadian champion team ropers kicking some ass already. They've won like every rodeo they've entered pretty much this year. Renee Leclerc, she's off to a hot start. She's like seems to be picking away everywhere she
Yeah.
goes. Kyle Brown just picked up nearly $10,000 at the Buffalo Lake rodeo there. So I mean, kind of the rodeo side of things, is there anybody that's surprised you, that you're not surprised by, or some people you think are gonna be, tough to beat this summer?
Oh, goodness sakes. Again, great question. And all of those names that you mentioned are ones that kind of came to mind
Mhm.
when you started the discussion. And yeah, to see the reigning Canadian champions in the team open and how they dominated the
Oh my
CFR,
god.
it was unreal, and the records that they set, and they're on pace to do it again.
Mhm.
So that's going to be really cool to see if they can kind of continue with the momentum that they've had. Yeah, you bring up Renee. It's been a few years since she's been to the
Yeah.
CFR and in a position to most likely get back there. She's just having a great start. The one and never counter out. But I thought it was really interesting because I was just checking the standings and the results yesterday for the Buffalo Lake Métis Settlement and the gateway to the North Pro Rodeo. And Lynette Broadway wins that
Mm.
rodeo, and of course she was had the number one back number not that long ago in a Cal Girl of the Year, and I think it was the final rodeo of the year that was her first rodeo win. I mean, she placed
Yeah.
kind of everywhere, and she had a
Mhm.
really neat story that season. But now she's jumping out and winning rodeos, and in a big one at that, at a tour rodeo. So it'll be interesting to see. She'll really be a force to be reckoned with. Um, and I think collectively, just I know I always go back to it, but our group of bronc riders right
Oh,
now is
man.
just so amazing. It's hard to
Mhm.
say, yeah, oh, watch out for Zeke. I mean, that's the comment across the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody in rodeo, it's like, well, here's Zeke, so everybody knows who Zeke is. If you know how to spell rodeo, so maybe that would be too much of a layup. But that whole collective is
Mhm,
so
mhm.
strong, from the Hay brothers to Cole Ashbacker to everybody in that mix. And I know that I'm leaving a lot out there, the Ben
Well,
Andersons and all these guys, but they're so good.
and like Kyle Wanchuk, the guy who he just won
Hmm.
in Buffalo Lake, and Colby came in second, so you're gonna have another group of brothers in that conversation.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a guy who's been finding his stride, kind of similar trajectory as Colby, you could say, like kind of picking away, figuring it out. But now I feel like this season you're gonna have two pierogi bandits on the trail, not just one.
Two pierogi. It's all you can eat pierogies. Yeah, man, it's so good. And of course, Kyle coming off his Kenny McLean Award last year.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, not a one trick pony. I mean, great team roper as well, and was such a champion at the collegiate level. So yeah, it's good to see him to kind of really move along and
Mm.
evolve as well. And then I think too, you've got some young bull riders that
Oh,
are
yeah.
just so darn good too. And again, I apologize to everybody listening for names that I'm going to miss, but the Bo Gardners of the world and the Grady
Mhm,
Youngs of the world that are really starting to make a name for themselves. They're 18 years old.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and and it's amazing to kind of see them come forward and really I guess, stake their claim and be
Mhm.
forces to reckon with. It's not going to be, oh, geez, I hope I can fill my permit. It's these guys are going to, be knocking on the door of a Canadian Finals rodeo
Mhm.
qualification in their very first year. So that's been really cool to see too.
I think the bull riding is kind of getting to be where it's in the best it's been since like the Tanner Gurlett, Scott
Mm,
Schiffner, Zane Lambert era of it's really competitive. It's not going to be you win your 20,000 or 15,000. It's going to guarantee you a spot at the CFR. You're going to have to be making checks and making rides like all the way through the summer up into the CFR to get in there. And that goes for those young guys and our veterans. You're going to see that they're going to be duking it out for the 12 spots. It's not going to be a walk in the park this year for those guys.
yeah,
I'm not
I
I'm
agree
not
with
saying
that.
not saying it ever is, but it just seems
Yeah.
like in the past couple of years, the level of competition is getting more and more and more with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. And I think that's great evolution of the sport. And I think too to that, what is there now? 15 SMS Pro Tours plus the
Mhm.
final.
Yeah.
So there's more money out there to win. So it's just going to probably most likely on average take more to get there. We're seeing increases in opportunities. And I know that special event wise, a couple new bronc riding events this year. So that's going to
Mhm.
change that complexity of that
Oh,
event.
yeah.
You're going to have to win 3 or 4 more thousand as much as some of those pay, more added money in Ponoka, Pollockville as much as it pays, and now the Zeke Thurston event in Stettler. So it'll be really neat to see what it's going to take to be a number
Yeah.
12 spot in the bronc riding. So yeah, it's cool, man.
It's gonna be cool across the board to see, like, what kind of earnings records are broken. I think we're gonna see pretty much every event be shattered this year just with the amount of money available, but another guy I wanna touch on before we move on to something else, Brett, is he's just recently featured in the latest edition of the Canadian Rodeo News is Clay Elliott. So,
Mm,
former Canadian champion saddle bronc rider, like, comes from an awesome family, Vernon Ty, um, that crew, they live they're just in the Netton area now, but Clay, he's kinda making a name for himself in the tie down roping, and I wanted to kinda get your opinion on watching him evolve from saddle bronc riding champion to kind of a bit of
yeah.
adversity and then coming out the other side as probably going to be one of the top 12 guys heading to Edmonton in the fall.
Yeah, I think the world of Clay Elliott and his entire family,
Hmm.
for that matter. So, and you mentioned, most of them. Which is great, and yeah, Clay's such a cool such a cool guy,
Yeah.
and such a talent, and I know that his story, yeah, winning a Canadian bronc riding title and riding broncs at the NF4 and a guy that would challenge for a world championship, and then, yeah, kinda had to work through some things and dealt with some adversity physically and then bounce back into what he did. I mean, you know how much I kind of love the sports psych side and the mentality of things. And
Hmm.
it's just really the mindset of a champion. And Clay Elliott has that. And I think one of the great things about Clay Elliott, and maybe the coolest thing about him, I say the mindset of a champion. I mean, to be world class and to almost recreate yourself in another event. And he's placed almost everywhere this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's well in the top few positions of the Canadian standings. To do what he's done is pretty special. But I think always more importantly, he's kind of that guy that's the X factor where,
Mm.
hey, I've worked so hard and I've got this champion mindset and I'm going to be a winner, but I'm also world class when it comes to being a great human being.
Hmm.
And I think that's what so many of us strive for, and sometimes we
Yeah.
fall short, but he's a guy that I think has really in his story, when I think about him, he has trudged that path of adversity and showing so many of us.
Hmm.
And that's where I really think the inspiration comes from that story is just he just puts in the work. I mean, he ropes calves every day. He's just willing to commit to his
Yeah.
craft. He's willing to do what it takes to be a winner. And I can assume, and if and again, just an assumption on my end, those days aren't always easy.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
he's and he's working on horses, making sure they're going, and that's a huge part of it too. And he's always just going to work at it. And I think for all of us from the outside looking in, I think there's so much that we can learn from Clay Elliott. Yeah, first and foremost, how to be a champion, but how to lead the way with being a great human first. And to me, that's the coolest combination. And we probably need more like that in the world, to be honest. But
Yeah.
he's a guy that can has shown so many of us the way. So I'm sure proud of him.
Oh, it's remarkable, and a lot of guys in his position would have given up too, like having something he worked so hard taken away when probably in his prime of his career. Like he probably had a couple more Canadian titles under his belt, like you said, competing for a world title, and it's not easy to regroup after something like that. So it's just a testament, like you say, to that mindset of a champion.
Yeah, he's pretty incredible. It's going to be yeah, cool to watch him this season for sure.
Yeah, so if you want to check out more on that story, we have the latest edition of Canadian Rodeo News is live on the website, so go and check it out more about Clay Elliott. But so Brett, I wanted to jump back kind of to what we were talking about before and how you're motivating yourself and trying to keep elevating your game. I want to know
Sure.
who are some people that you're drawing off of for inspiration, or who you're kind of seeing as mentors, or people that you are trying to build yourself off of. I know for a lot of people in our world are kind of up and coming people, you're that guy. But I want to know for you, who are the guys you're looking to? Because I know a lot of people want to hear that because, like I said, you're for them, you're that guy.
Wow, that's scary, man. If I'm that guy, holy smokes. Yeah, oh gosh, I appreciate it. I'm gonna take that as a compliment. But
It is
um
100%.
yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. I think I really draw my motivation from so many different worlds.
Hmm.
And I think even back, I draw as much motivation from the guys like Clay Elliott
Hmm. Hmm.
than anyone. I love people's story. I love telling stories. I love the power of story, but I think there's something to be said when people execute. Clay Elliott set a path and he set a goal and he's executing on that, right? It's like in anything, a big question in my other world. And then I ask lots of people I work with, it's like, what do you want? How bad do you want it? And, what are you willing to do? What price are you willing to pay? And you got to go and you got to pay it every day. So I think I'm really inspired by those people that kind of go and I know that sounds a little brash, but it's like pay the price every day. And is
Hmm.
that showing up and just being a good human being? Is that showing up and making sure that what you do today is going to make you better and is going to serve you and is going to serve others around you? So um, anytime I can pull motivation with that theme, if that makes any sense, is
Hmm.
probably where I find that motivation. So not necessarily from a certain person or a certain team, but more through kind of the story that aligns with where I think I want to go. Often how I work, it's like if I'm somewhere and I'm feeling something or I'm seeing something, or it's like, you go, you show up and you've been there, you walk into this room and you meet somebody for the first time. And I don't know what it is, but they just made you feel so good. You're seen and you're heard and you're all these things. And it's like, wow, it's like those moments right there are the inspiring
Hmm.
moments for me. 'Cause I'm like, man, he made me feel good. Or,
Yeah.
I got to learn, or I got to. So it's like, what are those people doing? Because if
Hmm.
I want to be that type of person, if I'm able to be clear on, what I want the people to feel in the grandstand, then who can help me get there? Geez, I love the way that Wayne Brooks does this or Bob Tallman does this. And I speak to that because having a chance to stand on the stage with both those men as my heroes, at the Calgary Stampede. But then I just got to work with Dave Paulson again. And I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
what a huge inspiration Dave
Oh
Paulson has
man, he's
been
the
to me
best.
for over 2 decades and a tremendous mentor. And I even speaking to a couple of days ago, man, we worked an event together and he was awesome. And he just had my back the whole time,
Hmm.
professionally and personally. And he was happy when he got there and happy when he left and willing to. It's like those are the type of people that are so inspiring. He just comes and lays down a great job, is wonderful to everyone. Those are the people, I guess, that really inspire me, right? I mean, the job's the job, and we're all trying to be as good as we can, but there's no politics there. There's no nothing there. It's like we're just going to go together and be two wonderful friends and go and get to do a great job. So, kind of another example of just how he's showing up. And I'm
Hmm.
motivated by those people that are showing up and showing up as good people and willing to help others. And that's probably where the majority of my motivation comes from. And so again, is that there're just a few people and there's so many names that have
Hmm.
been a part of my journey that are responsible for getting me here and where I'm at for sure. But yeah, just kind of some of those ideas with motivation.
Oh, I love
That's a
it.
lot where it kind of comes from.
Yeah, and it shows in the work, man. Like no matter who you guys are working with, whether it's like Dave, Doug Young, Robert Schmidt, like a lot
Yeah,
of these people, you can tell when there's that chemistry there, like you say, that kind of that
sure.
motivation to do a good job. But no, it's cool, man. We got some great announcers and people behind the mic in pro
Yes,
rodeo
sir.
these days. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's something obviously it's close to anybody who's part of the bull riding community, rodeo community,
Sure.
any type of community. You don't even want to just put it around rodeo, but something that you deal with every day in your work outside of the arena. So I kind of want
Mhm.
to talk a bit about that topic and kind of how even just getting into how we can take better care of ourselves, whether it be on the
Sure.
road or at an event or like maybe you're going through some adversity like Clay Elliott. What are some what are some ways we can all do better to look after each other? or ourselves, I guess I should say.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think both. Yeah, big idea, Wace. And I love it. That's where a lot of my time gets spent. And I think it's probably more and more public all the time. And I've often told kind of my own journey and my personal story with mental health and what kind of brought me to more of an advocate role. And then
Mhm.
from there, it's now a lot of what I do outside of this. So again, just to give you some more context, my master's degree is in clinical psychology. My doctor works in sports and performance psychology. So I work as a clinical counselor and psychologist, and then do a lot of work as a mental performance coach with athletes and teams. So, yeah, I spend lots of the Monday to Friday kind of in that world, and I think it is really important. And I was drawn to that through. Again, my own experiences and
Mhm.
some ups and downs, and just wanting to do better and be better, and came from a place of wanting to be a better husband and a better father and a better friend. And as we all know, the road can get us down sometimes, and we spend a lot of time away from our homes, and then as rodeo athletes in particular, it's just riddled with uncertainty.
Mhm.
You enter, you pay your money, and you hope you draw the right one, and you hope the stars align on that day. And if they don't, it can be a really tough place to be. And then I got a 10-hour drive home, and maybe by myself, and then I got to get to work on Monday morning because it's not rodeo's not paying the bills like we thought it would. And so yeah, there's a lot of adversity, and there's a lot of things that, like I said, the uncertainty component of it.
Mhm.
So with that, sometimes can come some of those tough times. So, um, then that mental health space and being mental health awareness months, I think understanding what mental health is, I always think it's
Mhm.
like, how are we showing up? How are we feeling? What do we think about others and ourselves? And it's something that we all have. And it's like anything. It's, how sharp's my mental health? How sharp's my rope in one day? Geez, I just
Mhm.
couldn't catch a thing, and sometimes our mental health's like that. It changes from day to day, but it's certainly something that we need to continue to talk about and kind of get in the forefront, because I always think it's like, um, when it comes to mental health, every once in a while we get those signs and the check engine light comes on, and
Mhm.
sometimes we can't realize it. I know, just to compare to, if we're to compare to even a run, you're making a run in the team roping and you watch it back on film and you're like, oh, I wasn't scoring as sharp, and I didn't keep my tip down, or I rode that corner too wide, or whatever it is. We can actually see it, right? We can start to pick it apart. We can disassemble. But when it comes to our mental health, it's really invisible, right? It's the conversation we're having with ourselves in our heads. Well, I don't know. Am I okay? Well, I think I'm okay. Am I happy?
Mhm.
Right? There's a lot of uncertainty with that, and we all have our own story in our head. So that's a lot of times, when mental health gets trying, because we actually don't know what
Mhm.
it maybe looks like or what to do when it kind of gets in our way. So I think one of the most important things, and one of the things I try and help people with, is we maybe have to identify that we're in a place where our mental health is not where we want it to be.
Mhm.
So if first and foremost, if we're able to acknowledge that maybe something's up, and then I have to be in a place where I can accept that maybe I need to do something about it. So I always start to look there. It's like acceptance and acknowledgement. Geez, maybe I could be a little better here, right? That's that first conversation we have to have with ourselves, and then you know, um, accepting that, okay, maybe there's something that I can do.
Mhm. Well, and I think I think rodeo's on a good path. Like a lot more people are being open to that conversation and kind of recognize that within themselves. Obviously, the Ty Posbon Foundation and the Canadian Pro Rodeo Sports Medicine team and having people
Sure.
advocate like you are kind of helping open up that conversation more. But is there something, maybe another step that rodeo needs to take, or maybe the athletes need to do a better job, or what's something, like if you could apply something today to like the rodeo world, what would that be?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a
Really.
loaded question and tough question, but
And I guess, it's a tough question for sure, but it's one of, if not the most important questions, and it's a question I get all the time,
Mhm,
because it's like, again, what can I do? I don't know if I'm okay. So again, that idea of sometimes accepting that, okay, something's up,
mhm,
not feeling like myself, then what? Um, and that's where it starts to kind of, if you say, the loaded question, because everybody's journey from there is a little bit different. Um, is my role at that point, to reach out for help? I got to phone Brett Gardiner at Momentous Performance and, hey, maybe I need some professional help. Or, hey, maybe I just need to tell my partner, my friend, that I'm just having a rough day, and it's a 5-minute conversation, and we're okay. Even though I live in a therapeutic space because that's my job on the week, it's like not everybody needs therapy. And sometimes I
No,
think
no.
we jump to that a lot of times, right? And that's okay. I
Mhm.
think I'm a huge proponent to it. It's what I do. But it's like sometimes, geez, I just need to do a little better job of checking in with myself. Hey, I'm not feeling great today. What changes can I make? If I'm
Mhm,
comparing
mhm.
yesterday to today, geez, I was a little happier. Well, why? Right? Almost start to be that internal detective, because it's like, you can't manage what you can't measure. So we have to get to a place where it's like, geez, you're just not feeling yourself, or something's
Mhm.
up. Okay, so what now can I do? I think it's like, I use the example sometimes. It's like, um, you got a calf horse that maybe isn't working a rope, so you maybe change your jerk line setup, and maybe that didn't work. So, then you're going to be in the practice pen with that horse a little bit different. What are you doing? Well, you're willing to make changes so that
Mhm.
your horse feels and responds differently. The process, when it comes to us, it's really the same thing. What changes am I going to intentionally make so that I can start to feel better? If I'm to jump over from the mental health world and into the mental performance space, which I do a lot of my work, it's like
Yeah.
my job is to help people get into I say, like, that ideal performance state. How can we get you the best? How can we get you feeling the best on the most consistent basis? And I would say the powers in the personalization of the process. So if, like, hey, if Wacey Anderson's not feeling his best today, what is his process to feel better? If
Mhm.
Brett Gardner's not feeling great today, what is his process to feeling better? Are we clear on that? Right. A lot of times we have so much clarity on things, we can see it, but we necessarily don't have that same clarity on how we work or
Mhm.
why I feel the way that I do. So how can I start to feel those things and feel that stuff out? Hey, why am I sad? Why am I mad? Why am I, not willing to talk to anybody?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
How can we start to look at that stuff without judgment? Start to question kind of why, and then, hey, what might help? And I think for me, at 41 years old, it took me 41 years to get where I'm at. It's going to take a little time to sometimes kind of work through that.
Mhm.
But I think I owe it to myself and the ones that I care about and the people that paid the ticket in the grandstand for me to do the work to try and maybe, so that I get to show up and be my best. Not always easy, but it's like anything.
Mhm.
Check engine light comes on. Okay. That's a sign, right? Where emotions are a sign. There's lots of those signs out there. Am I willing to listen to them? And
Mhm.
like you, the loaded question, hey, well, I don't know what to do. Sometimes it's like, I know it's just, and people are going to smoke me on this answer. Like, well, let's do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say, let's
Yeah.
try something. I'm with
Yeah.
you. I always say, no, I am not a master clinician, but I'm willing to go ahead and jump in the trenches and do what I can to try
Mhm.
and help people as best I can. So how can we get in there together and kind of move the dirt and shake, rattle, and roll a little bit?
I wanna talk more a bit about the mental performance side. I know it's
Hmm.
something probably that's relatively a bit new to the rodeo game. I know it's pretty big in like hockey and baseball and
Sure.
the big major sports that people follow. But how and I don't know how many rodeo athletes you're working with or whatever, but how have you found the reception to it? And are people seeing results from it? Or I'm just curious about that side of it. Like I said, mental performance is probably kind of new to a lot of rodeo athletes.
Yeah, I think in respecting confidentiality with
Yeah, yeah.
the people that I'm fortunate enough and really honored to work alongside, I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree. It's starting to pick up,
Mhm.
and even the mental health space in general, right? Because they're closely related, um, kind of on the heels of COVID,
Yeah.
which we see in the mental health space is still a thing, but we've never seen the rates of depression and anxiety that we have right now. So it is at an all-time high. So it is a thing, and I don't mean to throw this curveball at you, but
No, no.
I would be amiss to not mention this on a public platform. It's like one of the highest rates of suicide that we see amongst any population is middle-aged males that
Mhm.
make their living in the agricultural industry. It is statistically higher than the general population. Well, that's the world that you and I love the most and are closely connected to, ways, right? So it's like, it's scary to talk about, but it's just a fact,
Yeah, yeah.
and it sucks, man.
Mhm.
Right? This kind of stoic farming, ranching, cowboy community, it's hard to talk about it, but it's like we need to talk about it now more than ever. We don't always have to have the answers. I mean,
No.
that's the other thing. Sometimes it's like, "Oh, we got it." No, we don't. Sometimes we just have to let it breathe a little bit, and know that we're not alone and start to normalize those conversations and give people permission. and now as I digress to the mental performance question, yeah, I think it's gaining a lot of speed,
Mhm.
and I say that because get to see more and more Western sports athletes come through the door all the time, which is great. I will argue that, that age,
Mhm.
18, 19, 20, 21, 22 is probably 75% of it, which I
Mhm.
think is cool though. I always say we're being proactive here. If you and I maybe would have had those skills at 18, 19, 20, instead of, 30 or 40,
Yeah.
it maybe would have served us in
Mhm.
many
Mhm.
walks of life. So I think it's really cool that I think it's more and more accepted. Because even the mental performance piece or space, and people think, well, what is it? It comes down to a lot of the mental performance piece. It's more like a coach than a counselor,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? We're talking about what we would call like psychological skills, like how do we make sure our confidence is in a good place? When we work with mindset, goal setting, how do we use imagery and visualization? How do we use self-talk? How do we now pull some more tools out of the toolbox when things get tough? So that's really almost skill acquisition is more of that mental performance space. And it's been really cool to see people come through the door that want to make sure they're in a position mentally that they can take advantage when they're given the opportunity. So I think it's gaining momentum, and Wacey, I think it's going to gain more momentum and become more uh, of something that people are really looking for, just
Mhm.
because it's
Mhm.
still a bit of an untapped resource. And I think people are starting to see the benefits from it, and we see it lots in sport. There was a I'm an Oilers fan, and Stuart Skinner there on Sportsnet. There was
Oh
just a thing a
man,
couple
yeah.
weeks ago, right? And his kind of story, and how many times have we heard stories about athletes when they take a leave from the team, and it's
Mhm.
because of for mental health reasons, personal reasons, or we're losing professional athletes, and rumors are that it's they died by suicide and things like
Mhm.
that, and it's just sad. Again, not probably the
Yeah,
tone of the
it is.
conversation that
No, no,
a
it's
lot of
good, it's
people
good
want to
that
hear
have.
today, but it's reality, right? And
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it just gets to a point where it's like, hey, I'm not okay with that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
how can we help support that? So um, I know that I was back and forth there on
No, it's
mental
good, man.
health and
Because
mental
my
performance,
brain's
but
going everywhere too, but
yeah,
it's kinda
sure, and
it's one of those things too,
yeah,
you gotta be willing to have these conversations, right? Like, about that stuff. I know, and I think a lot of it, you going back to the agriculture stat you told us, and even
sure,
thinking about with rodeo, it's like, there's so much pressure around these lines of work. Like, a lot of it's riding on the performance of your crops or your cattle or your performance in
sure.
the arena. Like, there it's a lot of pressure, and in a way, it's like, if we don't start having these conversations, that nothing's gonna change, right? Like that, and I think it's hard, and we all, anybody who's grown up in agriculture or the Western life, that these conversations don't happen all that often, but if we don't
Sure.
start having them, it's not nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, I agree, right? And I said it was never ever a dream of mine, to
Mm,
become a psychologist or to work in this space, but through my own journey and when I, a little bit of my story, when I looked for some help and got some help and felt so much better, and then
mhm,
I said, it's like I got in the boat and I paddled across the river and I got up on the other side and I looked over and there's so many wonderful people that I
mhm.
think were in the same position I was, and hey, we just need a little nudge or a little support sometimes. So I just said, I'm rowing the boat back and forth. I just want people to be happy and enjoy themselves and be able to, enjoy their families, and sometimes we just need a little bit of help to do that. Sometimes we just can't do it alone. That was one of my big takeaways, whether it be the mental performance piece, or the coaching piece, or the consulting piece that I'm involved in, or that mental health support. It's like, geez, I just couldn't do it alone. That's okay.
Mhm, mhm.
We're not supposed to do it all alone. But especially with the transition in generations and kind of that ranching community, that cowboy community, we often can't give what we've never received or we don't have a language for. 10 years ago when I got mad, it was, go out and punch a hole in something and drink a beer. Well, it worked till it didn't, right?
Mhm.
So we just had to find a different way. And I think um, I use some examples once. You think of a barrel racer, and this is not a shot at barrel race. You think of the
Just gotta
money
prep
that's
your stuff for
but you think of the money that's invested in barrel horses or the things
Oh,
to make
man.
sure that your horse is going to work, or
Mhm.
calf horses to make sure that horses are going to work, and all of these things. It's like, have we invested that time to explore what works for us? And I go back to that idea, the powers and the personalization of the process. Do you know, as Wacey Anderson, when times get tough, what do I do? What serves me best? And what do I know is going to work? Have you taken the time to actually do that? The majority of the time, the answer is no, and that's okay. but it's like, are we now willing to do that work so that I get to show up as my best version? It's just like anything. At the end of the day, we never get rewarded for the work that we don't do. So sometimes it just takes some work there too.
Well, and that's just it. And I think having resources like guys like you and all these different resources out there for people to who are willing to put in the work and have that conversation, it's becoming more and more available to people. And I think you see more and more people taking advantage of it. And I think we're on the right track, but there's more to do, but I think we're on the right track when it comes
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
mental
I
health
think we are too, man.
conversation
Yeah.
around rodeo
Yeah.
and agriculture. But thanks
Yeah.
to,
And
people advocating for it.
yeah, for sure. And I always say, like, there's times that I wish, and there's something or the sanctity of the confidentiality of the work, and I wish there were times that I could say, hey, here's the list of people I get to work with, because I think a lot of people are like, holy smokes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what's really cool. They're like, oh, I'd never do it. It's like, well, you should see who comes through the door. You
Hmm.
should see the incredible people that I get to talk to, and I think I get more and more reach outs all the time, which is the signal of a good thing. I think we're starting to remove some of that stigma in that industry, and we just got to start pulling the rope in the same direction. So, yeah, it's exciting
My,
stuff.
I think, like I said, I think we're on the right track. And thanks to guys like you kind of advocating it, that I think more people are going to want to grab a hold of that rope and pull it the right way. But anyways, before we wrap up here, Brett, I want to shift gears, kind of looking forward to the rest of 2024. I know like I said, I had you on earlier this year, but want to talk a bit about some of the big events. We got more money out in Pinoca. We got more SMS tour rodeos happening. It's going to be awesome. Like so I kind of want to ask the question again that I asked you earlier in January.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you're looking forward to this year? And I guess where can people find you? And obviously you're a busy guy heading down the road, but I'm sure people want to come find BG Live wherever he's at.
Yeah, right. What's this guy doing? We'll make sure to go to the other one. Yeah. No, man, it's I just think I'm generally excited just about like he's lots of things he said. I mean, there's lots of money up for grabs, more than we've
Mhm.
seen. I still go back. I know it's been a couple years. I've already said that scary word already, but just the rebound of the industry and the
Mhm.
sport when we had those couple years on the shelf, it's been amazing just to see the support, record-breaking crowds all the time. And I think that rodeo has the momentum, and I think it's so cool. Just to see these great sets of fans that are out there and supporting. But yeah, that whole wave, that new generation of talent that's coming in all of our events. I think there's shining stars in all of them, which is really really cool. I think the breakaway just continues to gain a
Oh yeah.
foothold and is really taken off. So I think that's really cool. The Canadian Finals Rodeo going to Edmonton, and I know that there's been debate on that, and I know there's lots of people and opinions on that. I say I come from a place having had the chance to work in that building before, and by no means am I, this is not me saying I'm going to the CF4. I mean, that's yet to be determined of who's going to be
Mhm.
there, and regardless of who is, it's going to be a phenomenal team. Um, it'll be cool to see rodeo back in that building, and I hope it just absolutely fills up and rocks and rolls, and so it'll be exciting to see it on that stage. And events moving forward, yeah, I get rolling to Grand Prairie, which is always a really cool one, and I'm always excited to be up there. And
Great
from
committee
there,
there.
yeah, great committee there, and yeah, they do a good job, and it's a big deal, from the
Man.
wagons to the concerts to
Yeah.
rodeo there is just a part of it.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's sometimes you go and the rodeo is the cog in the wheel. Rodeo, as much as we love it, it's a spoke there, and they
Hmm.
got 4 or 5 pretty big spokes. So that's a neat spot to be a part of. And yeah, from there, a couple others that come to mind. And again, I'm always scared to leave some out, but from there, I go to Lee Park, and I'm a huge Lee Park fan. I just love the authenticity of that event, and
Hmm.
what it represents. And that committee works so darn
Oh
hard
man, they're
too. And
great too.
yeah, Lloyd Gray and Rick Hozak. Chatted with Rick a couple of days ago, and he said, "Man, we had a couple inches of rain," and he said, "We could rodeo right now. That's how good our ground is." They just
Awesome.
care so much.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see how much they care. And yeah, from there, gonna slide to Gunner's Bronc Battle in Gleason. Will be the first time that I get to go there alongside
Cool.
Dustin Edwards. So really looking forward to that. I always enjoy my time with Dustin. He's such a cool dude, and
Hmm.
that's a guy that I always learn so much from. He's just so handy when it comes to production and to announcing, and
Hmm.
so that'll be a fun one for me. And yeah, back to Wainwright, which that was the first tour rodeo I ever got to do. So I think I'm going into Wainwright for year like 15 or something.
Perfect.
So excited to be there. And yeah, the bronc ridings from the Hardgrass Bronc match, and get to be part of Zeke's event in Stettler, and lots of cool stuff. So yeah, looking forward to it. And then I'll go off to Calgary, and then kind of jump back in with Strathmore and in kind of the fall run in Armstrong and into Old Oktoberfest. And so lots of them. Like I said, I know I've missed a few there, but when I lay it out to you like that, buddy, I got to be honest, man. I'm the luckiest guy in the world in this business. I've got such a nice set of rodeos and wonderful people that I get to work with. So we're just going to keep slinging it and never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Oh man, I love it. And I really appreciate you taking the time and being so open and candid with me today, man. It's been fun to catch up, and I'll see you somewhere down the line. I'll catch you at one of these rodeos coming up here in June. It'll be good, buddy. Okay. Awesome, Brett. Thanks so much for the time today, man.
Thank you, Wacey. I sure appreciate you, and everybody out there. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of your loved ones.
Alrighty, this has been episode 14 of the Short Round. We'll be right back after this.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Short Round. Thanks once again to Brett Gardiner for taking the time to join us and sit down. It's always great to have a chat with him and hear what's going on. And also, one thing I forgot to touch on the top half, Clay, is May. It is the end of May by the time the show comes out, but May is mental health awareness month. Obviously hits home for a lot of people in the rodeo world. And I really thank Brett for being open and candid about those topics and kind of providing some insights and resources for people to kind of use as they move forward. I know it's not mental health is not an easy topic to discuss, and it's nice having people who are willing to talk about it and kind of, again, share those stories. But anyways, like you said at the top of the show, we got a huge weekend of rodeos coming with Grand Prairie Stampede that's going on. It'll be kind of halfway through, I guess, by the time the show comes out. Leduc, Black Gold Pro Rodeo, and the Handhills Stampede. Going to be an awesome weekend of rodeo. What do you got on the picks / predictions side of things? Aside from which flavor of pie from Handhills you like the best?
Well, the pie is always something you can depend on there. I looked at the Handhills, and it's hard to pick because, again, a lot of the young horses, this is where you get kind of your first taste of those, especially in the novice. That's really their first attempt at seeing anything. And but even in the bronc ride and the bareback ride, and they're still younger horses, or if they've got a few years on them, they're ones that maybe just they're trying to figure out where they're going to fit and see. So I couldn't even really make a pick out of those. I think the one that I liked, there was a G17. I think it was Going Coconuts or something like that. That'll be the famous flavored cherry and grated coconut blend that the Calgary Stampede prints and copies and pastes a lot of those together. So that one will probably be a holy terror. But other than that, it's hard to predict at Handhills.
Oh, it'll be good to see, man. There's gonna be lots of great action, like you said. The second stop in the SMS Pro Tour is happening in Grand Prairie. I know, like I said, it's kind of going to be halfway over by the time the show comes out. But on the Thursday night performance, it's going to have Tim Ellis tweet this out. So credit to Tim. Just 6 of the top 30 bareback riders in the world, or saddleback riders in the world, will be competing in Grand Prairie, and most of them heading back to Leduc on Thursday. So Thursday's could be some big scores in Grand Prairie and Leduc when it comes to saddleback riding.
Yeah, for sure. And I saw some of my picks were in that, I think, Thursday perf. You got Quentin Taylor on Pedro. I mean, Pedro, I can still remember the first time seeing that horse when he was just real young as a bareback horse at a rough stock deal. And I was just like, holy cow, this is something. And I mean, he's proven that time and time again. He's a legend and one that I'm sure Quentin Taylor's got to be really thrilled for. And let's hope that this gets him rolling and gets him to that CFR. Last year was just so close, and he deserves to get there. He rides so well. So
Well, another guy you had to jot down here, Clay, was Richmond Champion on Dancing Queen. That's a horse. I want to say Clint Lay won Strathmore on him last year. Am I wrong on that? Yeah. That's a really good horse, and having Richie coming back up to Canada it's a good thing. Having him in the Johnny, where it's going to be awesome. So that could be a pretty big matchup in Grand Prairie as well. Yeah,
another rodeo news plug. That was my first article, was on Dancing Queen.
Oh, perfect.
There.
Okay, nice.
And so no, again, it's just champion versus champion. That's the one you want there. I mean, there's a few others for sure. Danton Birch on Mucho Dinero, but again, Richie Champion just rides so well,
Mhm.
and he's gonna just be pretty pumped about that draw. So
Yes, and it seems like he's trying to like get back to his championship form post injury. Like I know like, he took all of 22 off, and 23 was kind of his first year back fully on the trail. So I think once Richie finds his stride and gets back to where he needs to be. I know he was at his in-laws place down at the Lawrence's in Saskatchewan. They're getting some practice in. So watch out when Richie kind of gets that clicking, like when all cylinders again, because he's going to be tough to beat. And that again, adding more competition to the bareback riding or any event in Canada is always a good thing.
for sure. And I mean, his brother Doug there has got his training and workout regiment that I'm sure he lends a little bit to him. So it definitely helps out. And having Paige in the corner there
Oh
for
yeah.
some of that athletic training and care regimental will definitely help as well.
For sure. I'm just looking through your list here, Clay. Another thing you got checked off for Leduc. I guess we can move on to Leduc. Sawyer Erickson on Squash Blossom Steely Dan. That's the horse they won. They won the Falkland Stampede on, and Sawyer's one of those guys who had a really strong fall, pretty good spring down south, and now it's time for him to kind of keep continuing that momentum and get some wins here up throughout the summer. So this is a good opportunity for him in Leduc.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like that pick worked for me for Falkland. I'd lined up for Tyrell Roberts, so
Yeah.
it's kind of when you're betting on horses at the track, you want to stick with your winners, right? So, and again, I think that's just a great opportunity. And again, yeah, Sawyer had such a great Maple Leaf finals there last fall that I think again that set him up in the standings pretty well. And I think this just keeps going because Leduc's one of those rodeos that it's just it pays well enough that you do well there, and you got 4 perfs, and it's a good show. So
Yeah, for
it'll be
sure,
good.
man. One person that I want to give a shout out to, that we haven't had that I've been meaning to, and is Renee Leclerc in the barrel racing. She's kind of had an awesome bounce back year and seems to be picking away and picking up checks throughout the whole kind of anywhere she's been this year. And she got the win in Falkland as well. I guess we haven't really got the chance to recap Falkland since we did our predictions, but anyways, I know we've been pretty heavy on the rough stock side of things this episode, so I wanted to throw a shout out to some of our timed event friends. But yeah, shout out to Renee. If you bouncing back, it'd be cool. Looks like she's fixing to make the CFR this year, so it'd be great to see her back under the bright lights in Edmonton.
Yeah,
One kind of one. Oh, go ahead, Clay. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, Renee, her mom Corleen, like she grew up riding fast running barrel horses from the time they could tie the shortest set of stirrups on a saddle they could, and she's a handy rider, and when she gets the right horse at the right time going under her, like it's tough to beat her for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, and that's happening. We were seeing it right in front of our eyes again. Like she went in Falkland. It seems like she's always popping up in the results. I think she pulled a small check out of Buffalo Lake. So again, watch out for Renee this summer. All right, Clay. Last thing we got to talk about here is the upcoming Outlaw Buckers and Oil Kings bronc match, going down in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, on Tuesday, July 4th. So kind of a strange time for a bronc riding, but seems to work for all these guys. But you got a couple matchups to watch as we head into that next week.
Yeah, so in the intro, we were talking about that Lacey May that Kyle Wanchuk won Buffalo Lake on. And again, Dawson Dom, I know he got bumped out of the top spot after this past weekend. He's behind Lucas Matza there in the standings, but him on Lacey May there, again, a good money bronc ride, and that's a good draw for him there. And I expect some good stuff out of that. And then Gray Horse of C5s that they bought from Dwayne Pillman, a Calgary Stampede champion bronc rider from back in the day, that Monster Inc. Colby Wanchuk. I think there's some money to be made on that matchup there. So
Yeah,
it should be a good pairing.
It's going to be a good show. They got Butch Knowles coming up to be part of the broadcast team. It's going to be on the Cowboy Channel. $30,000 added. It's going to have some of the best bronc riders in the world, some of the best horses. You got C5, Calgary. Obviously, the Outlaw Buckers are going to be there. It's going to be an awesome one to tune in. And it's going to be easy to watch because it doesn't really overlap anything. So if you want to check it out, be sure to be tuning into the Outlaw Buckers and Oil Kings match bronc riding. It's going to be an awesome Tuesday in Saskatchewan. I'll be there, boots on the ground, so I'll do my best to cover it as well from the Pro Rodeo Canada lens. But yeah, man, that's kind of I think that pretty much does it for this week. We covered a lot of shit. Dang. I think we got lots going on. It's gonna be it'll be and it's funny. I guess I shouldn't sound like I'm complaining because we kind of we're waiting for this moment, but it's good to have rodeos back in full swing.
Yeah, no, it's all right to do the cliff notes of things because you have to when instead of hey, what are we gonna
just trying to figure it out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody wants to hear our old stories. They want to hear what's going on in the rodeo world. So it works out better that way.
Yeah, I think I wanted to finish with one Kyle Wanchuk story.
Okay, let's hear it. Yeah, there's people who like the fuck. Yeah,
this is pre-team roper, pre-bronc rider Kyle Wanchuk. This is young in the Ricky Ticky outfit. Back in the day, we were up in era. Yeah, we were up in La Creek the one year, and I was running a neck rope on this horse, and just kind of in between the shoots, and Ricky was doing his act where he had his chickens that were scattering all around there, and this one is just making a beeline for the out gate, and he was ready to just meet its doom towards these all the buck and stock, and so I just kind of went to like kind of scare it like this. Well, then it jumps and it's up there. I somehow managed this kung fu grip to catch this chicken to save it from going in the back there, and I can remember after it was all said and done that Kyle had come up and grabbed the chicken and then came back, thanked me, gave me a frisbee, and walked away. All of about 6 years old. So
man. Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The Wanchuk boys, they're good folks. That crew.
Oh, that whole group is just great. It's just so cool to see them now both riding broncs the way they are.
Oh man, so awesome! It's like even I remember we did an interview with Ricky and Colby at the CFR a few years ago, and you can just hear how proud Rick is of his boys and everybody. It's awesome to see them having their success. So hopefully I'm sure they'll continue on, and yeah, you get to see Ricky taking your town somewhere. Make sure you pay attention. He's funny, that old boy.
Oh, for sure.
two-time entertainer of the year now, Ricky Wanchuk. So awesome stuff. Yeah. Cool, Clay. Well, yeah, like I said, I think that's going to do it for episode 14, unless you got anything else you want to plug or we should be. Oh, check out the latest edition of the Canadian Rodeo News. It's on our website. Make sure to tag along on the social media page of Pro Rodeo Canada. We'll have results, news, anything that we think that you should see will be on there. So just stay up to date. Also, one thing to note, 5-pack tickets are on sale for the CFR. So if you want to catch all 5 performances and get some extra little benefits from that, head to the CFR website. Single day tickets will be dropping soon. And yeah, we're getting to that point now where we're talking about the CFR 50. So it's coming quick, and yeah, we'll do it, Clay. Thanks for joining me again today.
You bet. Have a good one.
Right on. Okay, well, this has been episode 14 of the Short Round, and we will see you all next time.